It is, man. I feel like the Flyers realize that they can't match the Penguins skill for skill. So Rick Tocchet, being a pretty good head coach, realizes, hey, let's suffocate the living piss out of them and see what happens. And yeah, um, yeah, it's a lot to take in, man. A lot to take in. If you can indulge me for 1 second. Oh man, just what I needed.
Ugh, man, very timely.
And welcome back, everybody, to the best music podcast on planet Earth. And the way that we measure that distinction is we travel to Ukraine, we go all the way to Uganda, but we take the long way around. This podcast is called Hey, Listen to This. And it is indeed hosted by two dashingly good looking men who share the same middle name. I'm the one. I'm the only. I'm the one who, against his better judgment and his Penguins fandom, took both Porter Martone and Travis Konechny in a playoff fantasy pool this year. I am in a living hell, Ryan James Kearns.
And I am the one, the only, I saw Porter Martone in action, and he is going to be a menace to the Penguins for many years to come unless somebody screws it up in the front office, which has happened before because of the Philadelphia Flyers, Matthew James Durzik. And for those of you who don't know what it is that we do here on Hey, Listen to This, it is not discussion about hockey, even though it is the playoffs and our favorite team is currently down 0-2 and it feels like they're down 0-5. No, what it is we talk about here on Hey, Listen to This is music. And every week, me and Ryan get together and talk about a music album. Whether it's an album we like, an album that's just been released, whether it's a series of albums based on a certain topic. We take the album, we discuss it track by track, note for note, line by line. We pick out our favorite tracks, our least favorite tracks, what we liked, what we didn't like, what we thought could have been better, what we thought stood out. And at the end of every episode, we give a rating for the album out of 10. We recommend an album based on the album we just discussed, and we pick a new album to discuss for the next episode, and the cycle begins anew. So Ryan, last time on Hey, Listen to This, what album did we talk about?
We took a look at our Hey, Listen to This bucket list, and we took one of those albums off of that list and we reviewed it. And that album was indeed Igor by Tyler, the Creator, not to be confused with just Tyler. I wonder if there's a musical artist out there by the name of just Tyler. Just not Tyler, but just Tyler. That would be actually kind of funny. I digress. And so I had a blast doing that review. It's an album, like I talked about in that episode, that I literally listened to a whole season of dissecting that whole album head to toe. So yeah, I was pretty familiar with a lot of what that album had to offer. But it was very refreshing, just diving into a good old record that both you and I pretty much enjoyed for the most part. You were slightly higher on it, and I know that you had a little bit of disdain for my reasoning, but I digress. Matthew, I'm going to flip it back over to you. Are we still friends, even though we didn't agree on the rating last week?
Yes, we are still friends, despite the... I wouldn't call it, I wasn't angry or upset. I was just left disappointed because I thought that we would have been directly eye to eye, but we could still see each other's eyes. We got our eyes open. But yeah, Igor was fun to discuss. I love that album, and it was very fun to just dive into it and go through everything that makes that one of the best rap albums I've ever heard. Not to spoil too much, if you want to hear further details and or gushing, the link is up for the episode on one of our platforms, and if you're wondering what those platforms are, we will discuss that later on in the episode.
So that was last week, Matthew. We had a blast talking about Tyler, the Creator, and his album Igor. So we must, move this gravy train forward. Matthew, what do we talk about this week on Hey Listen to This?
So last week, and when I say last week is because we are recording this ahead of time, so it was a week since you are listening to this episode, which is April 19th. It was Record Store Day. And in honor of Record Store Day, I looked through my record collection and picked a couple albums from a couple of local record stores that had stood out to me through the years. And between the two, you picked one I bought from Attic Records in Millvale, which is a suburb of Pittsburgh. And the album that we're going to be talking about today is the debut album, the eponymous debut album from 1978 by The Cars. Now, for those of you who are wondering, okay, what is The Cars? First of all, that was harder to say than I thought it was going to be. Secondly, The Cars are a bit of a new wave band. They're sort of tied in with the early new wave sound. And I'm going to go over the history of how they got to where they were to make this first album, a little bit of their post-history, and then I'll throw it to Ryan for his experience with this band before we dive into the album proper. But the Cars were a band from Boston that consisted of the main members being Rick Ocasek on rhythm guitar, Elliot Easton on lead guitar, Benjamin Orr on bass guitar, David Robinson on drums, and Greg Hawkes on keyboards. And these guys were popular throughout the late 70s and early 80s, but they got their start in the 1960s. In what city, Ryan? What city did the Cars pseudo originate in?
I'm going to take a random stab. Arkansas City.
No, it is not Arkansas City. But at the same time, that would be very, very impressive for a band like the Cars to come from the south of Arkansas all the way to Boston. But in fact, Ryan, it was Cleveland where the two main men in the Cars, Rick Ocasek and Ben Orr, first met each other. And then they did a little bit of touring together, just as their own act, before meeting in Boston in 1972. In the early 1970s, I should say. Ocasek and Orr, they met a guitarist by the name of Jazz Goodkind, and they formed a trio called Milkwood that released one album through Paramount Records, and then after that, they disbanded, and they met Greg Hawkes, who would become the keyboardist. And then after that, they met the other guys in the band, which were David Robinson and Elliot Easton. And their band that they started out as was not the Cars, but the band was called Captain Swing. And not even full Captain, it's C-A-P'-N, like the cereal, Captain Swing. And I'm not sure how they went from folk in Milkwood to this kind of stuff, but it was the 70s. Everybody was trying everything, including drugs. So then they get to the late 70s where they finally become the Cars, and they start with their first album on Elektra Records. And that is the album that we're going to be talking about today. And on that album, you had songs that would become top 40 hits like Just What I Needed, My Best Friend's Girl, Good Times Roll, which just barely missed the top 40, landing at number 41, and a couple others that were more FM radio hits. After that, the band would continue on throughout the late 70s and first half of the 80s, releasing more albums such as Candy-O, Panorama, Shake It Up, Heartbeat City, before officially calling it quits towards the late 80s over songwriting controversies and more or less royalty controversies, deciding who wrote what and who should get what for it. Plus, they wanted to pursue solo projects, and therefore they would break up by the end of the 80s. Benjamin Orr would pass away in 2000 due to cancer. The band would then gather together for, I think, their induction in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2018, and then Rick Ocasek passed away in 2019. So That is a very brief overview of who the Cars are and what they were and where they came from and how two dudes from Cleveland ended up making this new wave band from Boston. So Ryan, what was your experience with the Cars before we dove into what we're about to dive into?
So, my experience is a interesting one because, like, I kind of alluded to it at the end of last week's review, where I was just like, "Oh, yeah, I don't know anything by the Cars. I know that they're a group, but yeah, if you were to ask me what's a Cars song, can you name me a Cars song? I'm like, I don't know. Life is a Highway. I know that's not a Cars song, but I was just trying to be facetious there." No, in retrospect, I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and spoil it. When I started to do this review here, I found the song that I needed in order to be like, hey, do you know a Cars song? In that being just what I needed. So, anyways. But yeah, that's basically, in a nutshell, my relationship with the group. It's a fun one, man. So I'm gonna flip it back over to you, Matthew. I feel like you might, well, obviously, considering you have this said album in your record collection, you obviously have a better relationship with the group than I do. So why don't you flesh that out for me, man?
I will do just that. So my relationship with the Cars, it's a bit of a complicated one because, much like you at the start, I kind of knew that they were a group, but I didn't really know what it is that they did. But as I was shifting from my oldies phase from the early 2000s into what would be my classic rock phase that dominated pretty much the majority of that decade, I started getting little snippets of Cars songs. Like, I'm pretty sure the first time I heard Just What I Needed was through a commercial. I'm putting down pretty good money to say that's exactly what happened. It was using a commercial for some car or some cleaning formula or something or other. But I remember just hearing the hook. It's like, I guess you're just what I needed. And it's just like, oh, okay. And then when I found out later that was an actual song and not just a commercial jingle, I was like, oh, okay. Because it would get played on the classic rock stations. And as the oldie station would shift from 50s and 60s into 60s, 70s, and 80s, all of a sudden they started playing some old Cars songs too. So I started becoming more familiar with their hits. Songs like Just What I Needed, like Shake It Up, Magic, Drive, You Might Think, which is definitely one of the more popular ones. And so I was like, okay, these guys are good. But then every once in a while, I would start hearing another song from them, a bit of a deeper cut from them, usually from this album. And I'm thinking, okay, so these guys have a consistent sound. You know, their hits have been good. And I remember at some point, either in the early 2010s or late 2000s, picking up the Greatest Hits CD, because there were a lot of songs that I remember hearing being like, I want that in physical form. Fast forward about a decade or so, probably to around, I want to say 2018, 2019. I'm at Attic Records in Millvale, and I'm scrolling through their selections, and all of a sudden I see that they have a copy of this album that we're talking about today for $5. I'm thinking, you know what? I like that. I like that, because there's some good songs on here. I know that it's going to be worth the buy. And for the record, I have a system when it comes to buying any type of audio media anymore, with certain exceptions, is that because the regular price of an MP3 is like 99 cents or $1.29, if you can find a CD or anything worth that with one good song on it, you're paying for the rest of it. The rest is just gravy. So that's your little strategy if you ever want to go out and look for some hidden treasures at your thrift store or record store or what have you. But yeah, got the Cars on vinyl, listened to it, and appreciated it enough so that fast forward all the way to 2026, and here we are discussing it now.
Indeed we are, and I'm going to maybe take you up on that little, system where you see a record or you see a CD and it's like $1, but then you see like a song on there that you're like, oh, that's a good song. I'm going to go ahead and buy it. What's the worst I'm going to lose? $1? I lose dollars all the time, man. Not to get too morbid or anything like that, but I digress, Matthew. I feel like I'm prepped and I feel like you're prepped to let the good times roll. So, with that being said, let's kick off this review in full with the opening track being Good Times Roll.
Thank you, good sir. Good Times Roll is the opener off of the Cars debut, and we start with an opening that I would describe as bouncy, but it doesn't bounce, which might be a little weird, but what you get is this trade-off between Greg Hawk's synth and Elliot Easton's guitar, just sort of doing a boom, 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 boom. It's a very ominous opening, at least from a sonic standpoint, because you're thinking, okay, this has a groove to it, but it's thin, and I'm not sure what's to come. And then you get Rick Ocasek with those opening lines of let the good times roll, let them knock you around. And he's coming on like some sort of twisted spiritual guide in this song. Like he's basically saying, come along with the ride, It may be bumpy, there may be people who don't like you, but you know what? The ride of bump is better than no ride whatsoever. And basically that's what the lyrics are to this song, is basically, guiding you to say, let them say what they want, let them cut your rock and roll hair, let them leave you up in the air, let the good times roll. Which is basically a way of saying, in modern terms, let the haters hate, do what you want to do. Which, lyrically speaking, is a very bold move for the first song that people are gonna hear on your vinyl record from this band they've never heard of before. It's just like, hi, this is our first song. Anyway, screw all the haters. It's like, wait, who? What haters? Who are you? Who are the haters? What's going on? But that being said, this song very much works because not only do Rick's vocals sound just so out there, it has a sort of spiritual mysticism to it, but you add the harmonies from the rest of the band, it creates this very grounded groundswell of vocals that just really punch, especially when you get to those three words of good times roll. Like, it just hits so hard. And part of the reason the harmonies sound as big and as loud and as good as they do should be accredited to the producer of this album, which is one Roy Thomas Baker. Can you tell me what band, Ryan, Roy Thomas Baker was working with before he got to the Cars?
Oh, I couldn't tell you. So, but I'll take a random. I'm going to take a random guess. I'm going to... I don't know. I was going to say a completely, stupid answer like Simon and Garfunkel. I'm like, no, that's wrong, Ryan. Don't say that.
For the record, Simon and Garfunkel was not the correct answer. Rather, it is the band Queen. Queen is the band that Roy Thomas Baker worked with on albums such as Sheer Heart Attack, Night at the Opera. He is the guy behind the board for this album, and you can kind of tell because this sounds very Queen-ish. Not just because of the crazy harmonies, but Rick Ocasek himself almost sounds like an Americanized Freddie Mercury. Like, he definitely has that sort of very, let me show you what it means to be a boy who just killed a man. But not in the same sense as Freddie being full opera. Like, Rick is very much still a guy who talks about guy things just in a very hip rock and roll way. But again, the drums sound great, the harmonies sound great, the lyrics are very ironic and punchy. And I like this track a lot. So, full disclosure, I have a top 3 and a bottom 1 for the Cars. And Good Times Roll, this was a tough one, but I have Good Times Roll landing at number 2 in my top 3.
All right, man. All right. So you are indeed letting the Good Times roll, man, with this here. So, yeah, I'm glad that you gave the context of the slight Queen influence here with Good Times Roll, because when you get into that chorus like you illustrated and the things get highlighted by the end of the bar, where just things get louder, I'm like, oh, hey, yeah, that's Queen 100%. So props to you for highlighting that fact here. But yeah, I thought the core, getting into my thoughts about the chorus as a whole, the chorus was fine. Definitely uplifted by the fact of when things get loud, because for the majority of the track, at least from my experience, you just get Rick, the lead singer, being like, "Let the good times roll," and it's pretty inoffensive, honestly. It's pretty much like the equivalent of a locomotive, where it's just like, "Let the good times roll." It's a good driving kind of song, in my opinion. But yeah, getting into some more nuts and bolts, the guitar that is kicking everything off is pretty solid, and I enjoy how it gets built on throughout the song. I thought that was a nice touch. And also, instrumentally wise, the synth part that you can hear in the second and third verse was a nice touch. And the guitar solo section was fine, but honestly, nothing really to write home about. It did its job. It wasn't mind blowing, but it wasn't it didn't go the extra mile. And yeah, the lead singer and guitarist was on record saying this song was meant to sarcastically convey how he felt about rock's music idea of good times. He explained that this was my song about what the good times in rock and roll really mean, instead of what they're supposed to be. It was kind of a parody of good times, really. It was kind of not about good times at all. So it was he was trying to be ironic, as the kids would say. But I will say, admittedly, as much as I found this track to be completely inoffensive, there's only so much that the human brain can take in terms of hearing "Let the good times roll, let the good times roll, let the good times roll." I'm like, dude, change it up! Come on, dude! And again, I'm gonna this was the third single off the album. This probably wasn't even the first song they wrote for the album, but it's the opening track. But I found my brain going a little bit asleep towards the end of the track, and not saying that the track is caca poo poo, because I did compliment it on some aspects. I thought it was some moments were decent enough, but yeah, man, you might have kind of picked up on it. I do have to break your heart here a little bit. Are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. So with Good Times Roll, I am saying that this is my least favorite track off the whole record. And let me go on record officially saying that in comparison to other least favorite tracks off of records, I've definitely raged out more over other tracks and other reviews. But the justification for me putting this in the bottom of the bottom barrel for me is just a repetition of "let the good times roll." He was stuck on that idea, and wasn't really doing a lot to justify what was going on in the back half of the track there. But my full hand, just so you are aware, is I do have a top three. And I also have one more song in a bottom track contention. But when we get to that song, we will, obviously. So, yeah, man, I hate to pull back on the good times, but I had to be real, man.
No, I very much respect you being real. I should have heard the bells of 5 o'clock ringing a little louder. That's on me for not missing that. But yeah, I will say this in your defense, even though I do not agree with you putting this track at the bottom. I will say this track was very close to being my favorite song on the entire record, but it was that repetitive chorus that knocked it down to number 2. Because while I did enjoy just hearing it and it was very pleasant, I also recognized that it very much was repetitive. So it's just okay, we get it. You fill the space. You have crossed the finish line. Why are you still running? So I very much get where you're coming from with that. I did enjoy how things sort of layered at the end with the harmonies, but yeah, it isn't very intuitive. It definitely may have stayed it's welcome just a little long. But yeah, overall, just the performances on the song, I like them a lot. So yeah, sorry to hear that it wasn't up to your stuff. I'm just more shocked that it's your bottom track because of what is coming, which is my least favorite track because it's just so far out there. Maybe we'll agree on it when it comes, but we will get there when it comes. For now, we are pivoting on to the next track, which was another single. This being My Best Friend's Girl. Ryan, floor is yours.
So, my best friend's girl, the precursor to Jesse's girl. Is that correct?
I mean, time wise, it might be because this song was released in '78 and Jesse's Girl was '81, so very much in the violation of the bro code category. But yeah, it could be.
Okay. Yeah, speaking about like violation of the bro code, the lead singer um, is on record saying like this song is about something that probably happened to a lot of people, and I'm like, really? Really, that's kind of she's that's pretty interesting because like you kind of illustrated the bro code and like not to get too much into like my personal history, but yeah, I can't relate to this song. Like anytime a significant other leaves my life, yeah, they're pretty much just gone and they don't really just stick around in my life. But I digress. Getting into the actual song in terms of nooks and crannies, this song was interesting, and one of the main interesting things that I found about it, found with it was just that little like twingly guitar in between sections because I was just like, oh, not what I really anticipated, considering like what we heard in Good Times Roll and what's coming up here next with Just What I Needed. Like it was just like that's an interesting line. I don't mind it, it's just a different flavor than I was used to. It's like um it's like eating a McFlurry, an M&M McFlurry, and then all of a sudden that there's a French fry in it. Like, oh, I'm not offended by this, but I wasn't expecting this here. But other things about the song that I do want to highlight: the pre-chorus is very, very solid. I do very much enjoy the guitar part underneath everything, and also finger snaps. I very much enjoyed those in the first verse. I thought that was a very nice touch, and the chorus I found to be pretty good. Actually really good. And like I don't know if it was just the effect of like coming out of like Good Times Roll, where like it just seemed like the band was kind of stuck in like first gear and wasn't really expanding upon the chorus as a concept. But here the chorus came, went, and it just did its thing. So like it didn't overstay its welcome. But I also enjoyed the like again, to highlight that Western steel guitar line. I did enjoy that transition out of the chorus. I thought that was a nice touch, and the guitar solo before the third verse was pretty good. And yeah, just the overall vocal performance was pretty solid. Yeah, it's a pretty good song. Not in a top track contention, but yeah, I can't lie. Like it's pretty inoffensive, and it's definitely uplifting the album's momentum after kind of a failure to launch with the first track for me, man.
Yeah, my thoughts on My Best Friend's Girl. You do get that really slinky sort of intentional cool opening where you get that just very like muted guitar with the hand claps and the finger snaps. Just you can imagine them playing this like in a darkened alleyway with their leather jackets on because that's how cool they are. And it definitely sounds like that, but then you get, much like with Good Times Roll, which is that walloping full band entrance where you get the synth going, pew, and then you get the full band singing, Here She Comes Again. And very similar to Good Times Roll, and much like Good Times Roll, I appreciated that, although it was a bit more sudden than it was with Good Times Roll. And what makes this song seem a little different is that because the subject is quote-unquote more personal, because it's talking about relationships, or past relationships to be specific. The way that Rick Ocasek sings this, it definitely feels like he's singing from a more personal standpoint. So he's not necessarily being all mystical Svengali. He's talking like a dude, because in this case he is a dude who recognizes that, hey, his ex still has it, and she used to be mine. Now, I don't think that fully violates the bro code, just acknowledging that, hey, here comes this girl who used to be mine. There she goes. Here she comes. There she goes. I have eyes. Got my eyes open. And yeah, I will say, it does feel like there are moments, particularly right before the chorus, where he goes, like, he's definitely yucking it up a little bit. And I didn't mind that, because it kind of fits in with the sonic theme of the song, sort of a new wave cool jacket type of thing. But it was very noticeable that he was being very intentional with his sort of, here I am, all dramatic about my ex, but I'm still, not mad about it. Please don't put in the paper that I got mad about it. So that is an interesting twist. I do like how this song sounds. I think the guitar work is very good. I think the drums are good. I think the harmonies are, once again, very, very good. It doesn't do enough for me, though, to crack my top 3, because it just feels like the same thing as Good Times Roll, except maybe a slight step down. So I have My Best Friend's Girl as a cut track for the Cars, because it was good, but not quite top 3.
I think I would put My Best Friend's Girl in the good song bucket in retrospect. Like, again, we're going to disagree forever with Good Times Roll, but yeah, I mean, it doesn't do anything to really just, really catch my fancy, but, it's good enough on its own. Like, I very much enjoy the performances. It's pretty solid. So, that being said, are you ready, Matthew, to dive into the big one? The song that everyone needs. The song that I need. The song that you need. With that song being just what I needed.
Absolutely. This is the big single off the record. Although, in hindsight, if you look at the numbers, not that big, because it only peaked at number 27 on the charts, so it didn't even crack the top 25, but in retrospect, it is probably one of, if not the biggest hit by the Cars. And the reasons why are pretty unavoidable. First of all, you get that opening where you get the iconic guitar work from Elliot Easton, where you just have that sort of muted strumming, that like very jagged, very staticky, very intentionally off-putting, and on the upbeat. And right in tandem with him is David Robinson on the drums, who is just really pushing that upbeatness to its full length. And it has the couple stutter steps where you get that dun-it instead of dun, which is very nice. And this time we get Benjamin Orr on lead vocal here. And funny enough, he sounds just like Rick Ocasek, except slightly smoother. Like, he's not doing the strutting and the hiccuping and the very I'm a capital S singer type move that Rick was doing on both Good Times Roll and My Best Friend's Girl. He's a lot smoother on this track, I think, Ben Orr is, but he's definitely has that conceited tone that matches the overall theme of this song. And the theme of this song is a little cryptic compared to the first two songs, where it feels like this is a love song, or at least an acknowledgement of a relationship, but it's a very casual one, most love songs are like, you are my everything, you are the sunshine of my life, can't take my eyes off you. Here it's just like, oh, you're just what I needed, and I needed someone to breathe, But it's delivered in such a tone that's very stoic and almost nonchalant that you kind of wonder just how intense everything really is, or if it's meant to be that intense. But that's sort of undercutting everything a little bit. The point is, this song just sounds great, man. Like, it's just a great song to listen to. Especially the way that the instruments on this track build. Like, you get a pretty straightforward beat on the verses, and then you get to the pre-chorus where it feels like Robinson is picking up the intensity just a little bit. And right before the chorus, where the guitars come in and start accelerating in. And then you get to the chorus itself, which is just one of the poppiest choruses that has existed in human memory. And what I haven't noticed about it until doing this review is how the instruments and the vocals have a counter rhythm with each other. Because, when you think about the rhythm being like that's what's supposed to keep the beat going. But on the chorus, it feels like the vocals are doing that while the rhythm section is just sort of grooving along at some weird offbeat type of rhythm. And it works so well. Like, these guys really know their upbeats and their downbeats, and they just execute this chorus to absolute perfection. And the way that Robinson hits David Robinson is the unheralded ear of this track, and I know I'm a little biased as a drummer, but yeah, no, he's really good on this track. The way he hits the right beats the right time, it just is so slick. And Easton too, his guitar solos work well. The keyboards from Greg Hawkes work well. Everything on this track just works so well. And it's not a very deep philosophical track. Like, this isn't necessarily an Idiot Wind or a River, but it doesn't have to be. It just sounds freaking good. So, yeah, we have once again entered top 3 territory. And in case you haven't guessed, and Ryan, I'm very much including you in that, we have arrived at my favorite track on the album. Just what I needed is a smash of a song.
It was indeed the song that you needed. So, yeah, so I agree with you in terms of that chorus, though. Like, I think it's a perfect chorus. Like, you thought it was like, you mentioned that it was like a very, like a poppy kind of chorus. Like, yeah, that's pretty much it. But here's the thing about pop music, everyone. It's not always a bad thing, and when it slaps, it fucking slaps. So, but yeah, like that chorus is undeniable. It's just so fucking good with just how everything just like, pops, and the call and response dynamic that you find in that chorus is like, very nice with how the vocals interact with like the lead vocals and the backing vocals, how they interact with one another. And props to you for like picking up on that rhythm and counter rhythm element that you were highlighting with the instrumentals and the vocals, verse and chorus, because that was a brilliant analysis on your part. So excellent job on you, sir, for that. And like the starting out with the song, the instrumental hits that you get at the start are pretty good, because this song could have started out like another like Good Times Roll, where it's just like, yeah, chugga 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 chugga, and then go into like a huge like chorus, which might have like I don't know, held back the track's potential a little bit, but still like the instrumental hits, like it almost forces you to pay attention as a listener. And I'm always a fan of that, where a band's just like, no, hey, you gotta pay attention to this here. So, and also sorry to the listener out there for basically making my voice, making you pay attention, I guess. But, and you were also talking about, within your analysis of the song, the building up of the song. And the one section I do want to highlight is a slight fake out that you get at the end of the first verse. I thought it was pretty clever, because you almost anticipate the chorus coming in due to the dynamic shift and how things were starting to get like a little bit louder, but then you get back into like the next part of the song, and I thought that was pretty clever. The guitar solo was very solid. Probably my favorite guitar solo in the album here so far. And if I can remember correctly, I think it's my favorite solo in the whole album. I could be mistaken with that. We'll find out about that later. But the only other thing I want to highlight about Just What I Needed is that Moog synth line that's heard throughout the song is pretty interesting and adds a nice touch to everything. Like, it's very, it gives it definitely that new wave element and it could have sunk any track. If done without the proper care and execution, it could have definitely held back the track's potential, and it could have sank the track's value, because it would have been like, what we doing with the Moog synth over here? It's just being a Moog. So, but yeah, I can't lie when I talk about the song here. It's so good, and as cliche as it might seem, I cannot deny it. I gotta be honest with myself, because I promised myself in 2026 that, Ryan, you're gonna be more honest, because the world deserves it, you deserve it, and the song deserves it. So I'm right there with you, dude. Just what I needed is also the song that I needed within this album, because it is my favorite track off the whole record.
Right up top there. High five. Yeah, no, it is just a classic song through and through. And I there's some things I didn't even mention. Like, you mentioned the Moog synthesizer, the way it worked. It doesn't do anything fancy, but it definitely keeps up the momentum of the song, especially the parts where you think there's going to be a chorus, especially after the first verse. And also the way the song ends with just that, big finish with that sort of jagged, warbly guitar line. That was a really nice touch. So yeah, no, just what I needed has been played ad nauseum on radio for the last close to 50 years, and for good reason. It slaps, like you said. So yeah, great track, great song, and definitely both our favorites off this album. So that being said, Ryan, moving on to the next track, and I will let you lead with this. I'm in touch with your world.
Oh, really now? Oh man, you're gonna have to buy me dinner first. So, but no, with I'm in touch with your world. One of the things that really stood out to me about the song is that rhythm that the band is laying down, dude. It's just so infectious. The dun 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 dun. I found that to be oh, okay. So instead of expecting a McFlurry to come out of that drive-through window, you're just handing me a Whopper. Just completely catch me out of left field, and I'm here for it, dude. 100%. Outside of that rhythm that is being laid down by the band, the dynamic shift that occurs in the chorus is definitely a highlight for me. It's totally caught me off guard. Not gonna lie. I was just oh, okay, we're doing that. Okay, yeah. The guitar feature after the first chorus I found to be pretty solid, and also the random instruments that show up here are great. I'm always a fan of songs and bands whenever they are hey, let's get funky with it. And the two notable instruments that I found here are sax and whistle. And I'm oh, okay. I guess sax isn't really that much of a novel instrument in terms of rock and roll, and especially around this time. But the fact that we got a whistle and also random percussion instruments, yeah, man, I'm digging this track a whole lot. Yeah, the only other note I got about the track as a whole is I found the vocals were produced pretty nicely, considering the context that they were trying to operate within. So yeah, only other thing I gotta say is with I'm in touch with your world. It did land in my top 3, as much as I was kind of laying it on there a little bit thick, my dude. It is my 3rd favorite track off the whole record.
Okay, so now it is my turn to go full Wilco mode and try to break your heart, because yeah, I'm just going to come out and say it. I don't think I agree with a single thing you just said. To me, this track is dog shit with no dog and extra shit. First of all, I don't think the vocals are produced very well at all. I think the way they make Ocasek sound as far out as he can be, almost like he's broadcasting his vocals from space, I did not think that was a good touch at all. I thought it sounded very thin. And again, I put the caveat in here. Your speakers may vary. You might hear the song differently, and you might think, okay, maybe the vocals aren't that bad, and think that, yeah, it's a little out there. But yeah, I think it didn't work for me. It just felt like a little too spacey for my liking. I get what they were trying to do with it, though, so I will give them that. I understand what they were going for. And you talk about the backing. I thought that was probably the best part of the song, just the very almost, bass and novelty instrument motif that they were going for. I did think that was clever. It was definitely off-putting and very much not the pristine rock and roll that they're providing on the first 3 tracks, at least in my opinion. But at least I understand, again, what they were trying to go for. And there was a part of me for a while doing this review where I was just like, okay, I don't really like this track a lot, but is it really a bottom track? And then I read the lyrics, and this is what really sunk the track for me. Because the lyrics on here are just garbage. They are rhymes for the sake of rhymes. By any chance, did you see the lyrics for this before you started this review?
I mean, later on in the review here, I'm gonna highlight a set of bars, but for the most part, a lot of the lyrics here, I read and I saw, but with this track here specifically, I'm waiting to hear what you're gonna say, because I wasn't really offended by it. But go ahead, why don't you take the floor and offend? I guess offend me. I don't know.
So I mean, I don't seek to offend you. I'm just seeking to release my own personal offense. So the first verse, or the first set of lyrics that come after the chorus, which I admit is alright. The chorus is alright. But the lyrics go like this. I've been lying on your feathers. You keep talking about the weather. I'm a psilocybin pony. You're a flick fandango phony. What is that? What on earth is that? That is a set of lyrics where you can't even look at it and say, do better. This is a don't do this ever again. Like, you can't even drink a glass of water and come back the next day. Like, no, this needs to be set on fire. This cannot go to print. This cannot be released to the general public. What are you guys doing? The lyrics to me, when I read them, sank this track as much as it did for me, because I can get away with a outward sort of fun spiritual track where you're just kind of playing around and trying to not take yourself too seriously. I can respect that, and I was willing to let it slide before I read that, but I'm sorry. This is the band dropping that slick, pristine new wave sound for going all artsy-fartsy, and it does not work. So, for full legal disclaimer, I'm in touch with your world easily is my bottom track off this whole album.
So can I defend myself maybe a little bit?
By all means.
So when I think about lyrics, and you know me, I'm very much a lyrics guy, but sometimes I'm like, yeah. If a lyric doesn't make any sense, but it sounds good phonetically, like, I don't try to think so much about it. And that comes from, like, the line I think I adopted from Noel Gallagher, the primary songwriter from Oasis, who's frequently admitted, like, honestly, that many of the band's lyrics are written to sound good rather than to convey any deep literal meaning. So I know that you're like, yep, you could defend yourself, but that defense is incredibly weak.
I mean, I get it. I mean, trust me. I get the presence of trying to create just sort of a fun, goofy song, but if I'm going to be completely honest with you, it didn't sound fun to me. It just sounded very pretentious and up their own ass. Like, you could make fun of yourselves. Like, I have the same problem in a sense with one of the Beatles songs, You Look Up My Name, or You Know My Name, Look Up the Number, because it's very much that same realm of being goofy just to be goofy and sort of forcing the idea that you're goofy. but it doesn't sound fun. It just sounds like you guys are just dicking around and not really accomplishing anything. And that's kind of how I feel with this song. But again, I am very much inclined to agree to disagree on this one, because I would say even more so than Good Times Roll, we're probably not going to stay eye to eye on this one.
And that's fine, man. We very much operate within the realm of like free speech here within our episodes and our show here. So yeah, without any for the lack of a better segue, I don't think we should stop this review because we've disagreed on "I'm in Touch with Your World." We should get into the closing track off of side A on this record, with that song being "Don't Just Stop."
Don't Just Stop, indeed. And they definitely don't stop. In fact, they start right back up with this song, because we get back into a much more typical rock groove, which I very much appreciated. And not only that, but it's a lot faster. They're fast on this track. They're very fast. And they also sound very good on this track, because I thought the drums, particularly from David Robinson, sounded very, very good. Just having a very upbeat, fast pace to it. And a lot of this track, especially on the verses, feels like it's very all gas, no brakes. Like, it's just pushing the tempo, pushing the issue. The guitars and bass are in line with each other. And Rick Ocasek, who sings on this track, he sounds good. He does sound very good. But what I found most interesting about this track is how the verses seem to have a bit more of a tougher stance than the chorus does. Because the chorus seems to be a little on the lighter side. Maybe it's just because of the key they chose for it, but the chorus feels a bit more poppier and a bit more light than the verses are, which is an interesting twist, because you expect the chorus to be a little bit beefier than the verses, but the verses in this case are a little beefier. And then you get to that final chorus where, for the first half of it, you get something that's just way crazy. It just has Robinson doing this very polyrhythmic riff on the snare and the toms. Almost sounds like they're trying to do like 20s flapper music. Like, you'd almost imagine them in like bowler hats and, sweater vests, just like flailing their arms in like some wooden saloon. That almost kind of what this sounds like. But then they switch back to the main beat, and honestly, it kind of works. Like, that's a solid transition from artsy mode back to straightforward rock mode. So I did appreciate that. Lyrically, it's once again not super philosophical. It's, pretty much half of the spiritual meaning behind the song comes right from the title being "Don't You Stop," which is, hey, whatever it is that you're doing, don't you stop doing it. And they certainly don't stop, because again, they are going full force on this track. So yeah, I don't know. I'm going to relegate "Don't You Stop" to the good song bucket for me, because it didn't really do a whole lot to elevate itself outside of its more interesting moments. But it did have some interesting moments, and overall, it sounds pretty good.
And for me, with "Don't Just Stop," I agree with you that things do get pretty kind of like crazy and fun towards the end of the track. But I'm gonna do a little bit of a fake out there. I'm gonna just start from the beginning, I guess. So the guitar that's kicking everything off is solid, and this is probably like a cornerstone or a building brick that the Cars use within their own songwriting, in terms of hey, we have a guitar break and we're gonna use that as the bedrock from everything on how the song is gonna operate. And if that's the case, cool, I very much appreciate that. The call and response dynamic between the vocals and the instruments are pretty solid as a whole, especially within the chorus, because you get that hype up. Don't you stop! Don't you stop! Don't you stop! Don't you stop! That was a ton of fun. And the chorus as a whole is pretty solid. But I'm going to be honest with you, that weak synth line is a bit off-putting. I was just like, oh, okay. And this is kind of what I was trying to illustrate with when I was talking about the Mook's synthesizer line within Just What I Needed. Because if we would have had this kind of synth line in Just What I Needed, I would have been like, Oh, okay. So this song's not utter perfection. Okay, I guess there is no God. But here, yeah, it's just a weak, kind of weak and off-putting. And here within Don't Just Stop, you get a couple guitar solos. Like again, what I'm labeling as like a guitar solo is what's labeled on Genius.com. But the first guitar solo section, if you can call it that, was a bit weak. However, the outro guitar part where the band's just jamming and going wild, like that should have been the solo. It could have easily been justified as being the solo. Like the band was just doing like the rhythm to keep everything in place. Also, again, gonna highlight the fact towards the back half of the track, the second chorus features a pretty fun drum part, and I'm here for it 10 times out of 10. I'm always a fan of different instrumentations, like, grabbing the spotlight and just showcasing the skills that they can provide within the track. So, that being said, why is this my second least favorite track off the whole record? You want to take a guess?
If it had anything to do with foreshadowing, it has to do with the lyrics.
Correct, man. And it is specifically, if you, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, if you're following at home, it specifically has to deal with the first verse. And I know, like, I might contradict myself here, but hear me out. Lyrics don't always have to make sense to be enjoyable, as long as if they sound good phonetically and they just come across pretty, like, nicely. Like, however, when I hear and I read lyrics like, right here, your hands are soft and creamy. Right here, your mouth is wet and dreamy.
Okay, I think I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, like it's just like those are the those bars are the biggest offenders. Like you also get like bars in the second verse of like your long black hair, it tickles my skin, it feels so luscious, come on, do it again. Like again, that bar isn't as offensive. Like the first bar is just like, the fuck, man? Like, like I don't need to read that. I don't need to hear that. And even in the first verse, the first bar reads, "Right here, I like to melt inside of you. Right here, your kiss is totally new." And I'm like, ugh, okay. That's a little gross, but. Anyways, yeah. For that reason, primarily, this track is my second least favorite track, alongside that weak, off-putting synth line. Otherwise, this track honestly could have been a top contender with how fun it is, honestly.
Yeah, and I think that's where I decided to hold back any sort of issue, because, not gonna lie, had I looked at the lyrics for this track before looking at it, I might have been a little harsher on those lines, but I think ultimately I was so taken aback by it going from the pretentious fussiness of I'm in touch with your world to something more straightforward sounding like this, that I was willing to forgive pretty much the lyrics at any rate. But you're right, that those lyrics are kind of creepy. They do have a bit of a ugh to them. But I think the music makes up for it enough that I'm willing to, again, just sort of stifle it in the good song bucket and leave it just sort of as a track that is A-okay. It's alright.
Alright, man. So, with that being said, before we kick it into the back half of the review here and discuss You're All I've Got tonight, Matthew, I have a question for you.
And what question is that, good sir?
If the dear listener out there is very much enjoying our review here today of the self-titled album by The Cars, and they want to help, support what we do on a week in, week out basis, because if they provide support, we will be more encouraged to do this the show week in and week out, and maybe one day we can get paid for it. I mean, that would be a lot of fun. What are some ways that they can help us achieve our dreams of getting paid? And if they also want to reach out to us on other platforms, how do they do that? And if they really, really are feeling froggy and they want to request a Phil Collins album, for us to review on Hey Listen to This, what is that avenue that they would have to take to get that Phil Collins review on deck, man?
I feel like that is you try to bait any of our listeners into forcing us to do a Phil Collins album, and I very much respect that. So for starters, the way that they can continue to support what we do here on Hey Listen to This, the first thing they can do is keep on listening to Hey Listen to This, and the way you do that is by finding us on the platforms where we upload our episodes, and we're talking about podcast platforms such as Pocket Cast, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, pretty much anywhere that podcast can be found. And another such place like that is YouTube. We have a YouTube channel where we upload our episodes every week, so if you like using YouTube for your podcast, you can find us there. And if you like what you hear, let us know. Either give us that 5-star rating or give us that like when you're on our video on YouTube, or, recommend us in your saved files, save us as a channel, whatever it is that you need to do for those outlets. Now, let's say you're listening to an episode and you're thinking, okay, I've heard of this artist before, I've heard this person talk about this, but I've also heard this person talk about this artist and this person talk about this one, and I'm not sure who would like this episode. Maybe I could just throw it out there and, let somebody find it if they want to take a swing at it. Well, the good news is you can do that because we are on social media as well. So if you're looking for us to tag us for any of our content when you post it, you can find us on Facebook, you can find us on Blue Sky, you can find us on Threads, you can find us on Instagram, and the username for any of those platforms is ttheylisten. Again, that is ttheylisten if you're looking for us on social media, or if you just want to type in the name Hey Listen to This, you'll find our logo with the blue microphone or the black microphone top of blue background. That's how you find us, and that's where you'll find all our episodes. And speaking of TT Hey Listen, if you want to reach out to us directly, but you do not know us directly, and you are the head of the Phil Collins fan club, we have an email address that you can reach us out at, and that is ttheylisten@gmail.com. Again, that is ttheylisten@gmail.com. And that is where you can give us any feedback you'd like, whether it's positive feedback, critical feedback, or, as Ryan suggested, a possible request for us to do an album, because we have done listener requests in the past, and we would like to do them again in the future. So again, that is ttheylisten@gmail.com. And you can find us on social media at Facebook, Blue Sky, Threads, and Instagram. And you can listen to our episodes on YouTube, Pocket Cast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and wherever you like to listen to podcasts, that is where we are. And for those of you who have done this time in, time out through our first 121 full reviews, because this is number 121. Actually, I think this is 120 because of that one episode we did. But anyways, the point being, we've done a lot of episodes, and if you've been there for any of them or all of them, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Again, me and Ryan are just two dudes who like to talk about music. We're not part of any major podcast network. We don't sell pills. We don't sell thrills. We don't sell services that can pay your bills. We are just two dudes who like to talk about music. And from one music dude to another music dude, Ryan, thank you as always for being a great co-host and just going along this crazy ride that may very well lead us in the full frontal direction of Phil Collins.
One day, man, one day. But spoiler alert, next week is not that day, man. But the compliment goes right back at you, man. Like, even like days like today where I really haven't had the best day. It's nice just sitting down, shooting the breeze with you, just going back and forth, and having a spirited debate within like episodes like this here. Like, we really, I don't think we've really actually taken offense to each other's like opinions, and we've also helped each other discover great music along the way, and that's the point of the show. And also, if you could. The dear listener out there might be aware, if you pop on Facebook and you scroll down for 5 seconds, you might end up throwing your phone against the wall due to like the way that the news and society nowadays just is basically the equivalent of like sulfuric acid to your eyes. So Yeah, man. Let us not be sulfuric acid to your ears. So, the dear listener out there, we just also want to thank you for coming along with us here. Yeah, it's been a blast, and hopefully the dear listener out there is like really just enjoying what we're bringing to the table, and we're helping them discover new music along the way.
Yes.
That being said, Matthew, I think we are ready to kick it into the back half of the review.
I agree. We are ready to get things going with side B of The Cars by The Cars. And Ryan, the floor is yours for the next track, which is You're All I've Got Tonight.
Oh man, thank you for the compliment, man. But no, with you're all I've got tonight. So yeah, here with this track here, I enjoyed a lot of aspects about this track. Everything just sounds big and heavy and just very thick and just very very enjoyable. So going into a couple of aspects about the track though that I very much did appreciate. The build that you get in that first verse into the chorus is fantastic. It's a masterclass in terms of songwriting and execution. So hats off to the Cars for that build there. The chorus is fantastic. I'm not no notes. It's really really good. It's just your prototypical boilerplate of the time chorus, but dude, it works. Coca-Cola's very famous drink for a reason. You don't mess with the classics, and if it works, it works. So, but yeah, other things about the track that I did very much appreciate. The second verse has some very excellent guitar licks. I very much appreciate the call and response dynamics between the vocals and the guitar there. I love the interplay. I'm always a fan of that within songwriting. And verse 3 essentially adds on that dynamic. And it's I'm very much here for it day in, day out. And the last guitar solo was pretty solid. Yeah. The only other thing I got to say about You're All I've Got Tonight is we have arrived! We've completed the trilogy of top songs within The Cars by The Cars with You're All I've Got Tonight completing my set, sliding in as my second favorite track off the whole record.
And for me, You're All I've Got Tonight is kicking off side B the same way that they dominated side A, which is just going back to full-on, straightforward, no BS rock and roll. And maybe not completely no BS because there are some elements of atypical rock moves, particularly that opening, which has a lot of syndromes and a lot of phasers. But it does have, as Ryan said, a lot of great call and response of particularly when Rick Ocasek is singing and it intertwines with the guitar licks from Elliot Easton. It's just a really good call and response. And not only that, but the lyrics from Ocasek here are pretty good too. In a way, this is very much like Just What I Needed from a thematical perspective, where it's basically about, hey, I'm not sure what's going on here, but I need this romance I need, this loving that I need, you've got it, and you're all I've got. But instead of Just What I Needed being sort of teetering the line between a lush romance and an apathetic hookup, here this is very much riding between feelings of defiance and desperation, where basically Ocasek is saying, I don't care if you hurt me some more, I don't care if you even the score, I'm here for you. And, this might hurt me, but I'm here for the hurt. So it's a very different vibe and a very different attitude, but it basically follows the same guidelines. And not only that, but much like Just What I Needed, it very much slaps. Because like you said, Ryan, the guitar work on this track is great. The drumming on this track is great. And you get those elements of the band just swelling with the harmonies right on the end of the pre-chorus, right in the main chorus. The harmonies on the chorus themselves are great too. The harmonies on the chorus are just as good, and you get the parts where it just builds up, where it has that nice little slam in the chorus. It's not as big as just what I needed, but it's pretty much right on that same formula. And yeah, like the way that you get the outro with the synth, the guitar interplaying with each other before the final big thing, that was really nice. Yeah, this is just a really solid song through and through. And much like you, I have completed my top 3 with You're All I've Got Tonight, where this one clocks in at number 3.
We did it, Joe, man. I'm very, very excited. And, like, in hindsight, maybe, I don't know. I'm very excited with, Just What I Needed and You're All I've Got. So those are very much locked in place. And maybe, like, a track coming up here soon could have been in my top 3, but there's one thing that was sticking out like a sore thumb, and kind of like angered me in a Saint kind of way. If I can do some epic foreshadowing with one of the tracks coming up here soon, but I'm very glad that we're very much in step with like a couple of the tracks within our top 3. Like some of the, like, obviously our 2 and 3 aren't aligned, but I could still consider it a win. So why don't we keep this gravy train rolling down the bend with the next track being Bye Bye Love?
Before I get into Bye Bye Love, I do concur that I'm glad that we do have 2 of our top 3 tracks being similar in appreciation. It's just wild that the other one is just complete disagreement from either side. Your other top 3 track is my least favorite track, and my top 3 track is your least favorite track. So it is a bit of a cross swords thing going on. But hey, that is the fun of doing these discussions, is figuring out what we like and what we don't like. But moving on to Bye Bye Love. This pretty much keeps the momentum up with You're All I Got Tonight, but one thing that really stood out about this track compared to the others for me is how very straightforward this entire track was. Like, with You're All I've Got Tonight, with Just What I Needed, with My Best Friend's Girl, with Good Times Roll, you get shifts in tone, you get shifts in dynamics where it builds up and then it bangs on the chorus and then it sort of dips back down. Here, with the only exception being the pre-chorus, everything is pretty much just all gas, no brakes once again, where you just have a very steady energy that rides throughout this whole track. The guitar is chugging along, the drums are chugging along, the bass is chugging along, the piano and the keyboards are chugging along, and very much this is a full band effort in that regard. Like, it doesn't really let up, and then you have those nice little sort of flamenco flourishes towards the beginning and end of the tracks where it goes da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Like, that's about as artsy as they get. Everything else is pretty much just straight 4/4, no muss, no fuss, no extra ranch on the side. It doesn't BS itself. Benjamin Orr is back as lead vocalist for this track, and he sounds good, as does his bandmates, particularly when they harmonize on the chorus. I will note that first chorus, Orr does dip down a little bit vocally, where instead of singing bye, bye love, he goes bye, bye love. So yeah, overall, Bye Bye Love, it definitely is a song that, it's not the biggest spiritual type of song. Like, it's pretty much just a song that is more or less just a straightforward, good pop, rock, new wave song. It's not outstanding, but it's very much reiterating the standard that they've set already on earlier tracks. And for that, I am putting Bye Bye Love in the good song bucket.
And for me, I think I'm right there with you in terms of my appreciation about, like, Bye Bye Love. Like, it's very much within the, I would maybe kind of put it between the good to great song bucket, but getting into the nuts and bolts about the track as a whole, you kind of articulated within your next section about the track, like the rapid guitar strumming that happens, like, at the start of the track. And I also appreciated how that gets called back into during the outro of the track at the end of it, because I thought that was a nice, like, little bookend. So that's a nice little note. And also within Bye Bye Love, we get another use of, honestly, guitar licks adding at the ends of phrases. So again, this could also be another building block of the Cars songwriting, like structure, their method, and it's always very nice to my ears. It always plays off nice. I always enjoy that. I found the chorus to be pretty decent, pretty simple in nature. Doesn't overstay its welcome, and it's just like it has like a nice bouncy kind of shuffle feel to it, because you get the like like bye bye love bye love, like it's very again of its time, but it for even nowadays it still sounds pretty good. I'm not gonna, no complaints here, my dude. One thing that I kind of did enjoy about Bye Bye Love, though, that kind of made it did stand out from the pack, so I'm probably gonna honestly put in the great song bucket, is you get a synth solo here, and it was pretty good. And I honestly kind of did want it to be a little longer, because it could have really just added to the song's merit. Maybe might have put it into a top 3 contention track for me, but it's just still so good. The guitar outro was solid as a whole. Like I said at the start of my dissection about the track, I like the callback to the beginning of the track with the rapid guitar strumming to finish everything off with Bye Bye Love. So yeah, dude. I feel like I'm a hair higher on Bye Bye Love compared to you. Just a hair. Like, if you had to put if you rated this track as a 7, I would put this as an 8. Nothing too drastic where I'm this is a life changing kind of track, but I enjoyed it, man.
And I appreciate that. I mean, it's definitely a good song. I don't think there's any flaws with it at all. There might be a couple moments where you're like, okay, maybe something different, but ultimately, from start to finish, it's just a really good, solid album track. And by album track, I mean a track on the album that's not necessarily standing out as a single. It's not something that people are going to be like, oh no, this is the album with Bye Bye Love on it. But it is, in fact, the album with Bye Bye Love on it. And the point being that it's a good track. It's a good track, and I appreciate that you appreciate just a hair more than me. That being said, I am ready, if you are, Ryan, to move on to the penultimate track on the Cars, which is Moving in Stereo.
Yeah, I'm very much ready to talk about Moving in Stereo. So I'm just gonna rip the Band-Aid right off of the Saint Anger wound here, and ask you one question, man. What is going on with that snare sound with this track here? If you don't know what I'm talking about, when we finish recording here and you go, if you have the time, just listen to the opening bit of Moving in Stereo. You're gonna hear what I'm talking about. It just sounds like it's recorded off. And for those of you who aren't aware, the Saint Anger reference that I keep referencing, Saint Anger is an album by the band Metallica, and within that that album, the snare sound is very, very off. So yeah, that's just a little joke that I came up with there on my own. I will see myself out, but before I do so, there is some positive stuff going on with Moving in Stereo as a whole, so I'm not just gonna be Saint Anger and your turn, Matthew. But no, with Moving in Stereo, I very much appreciated how this song was structured. It was structured in a very solid fashion. Instead of a straight up rock and roll song, which would not have been a bad thing, honestly. It's the Cars. What do you really I don't want to say what do you expect, but it would not be disappointing for another rock and roll song as a whole. But here, instead of just a straight up song, we get kind of a slow burn of a track that adds different instruments with each verse. And also, there isn't a chorus here, at least to my recollection. So, I very much appreciated the structure as a whole. One other, I guess, nitpick that I can have about the track is that horn effect in the third verse was a bit rough. It was overpowering. It was a little bit distracting. It was the equivalent of if I were to be talking right now, and somehow, somewhere, like someone lays on a car horn like right next to me, which would be pretty impressive because I'm in the dining room of my house right now, and they would completely drown out what I was saying, and I was just like, it would not be a good time for me. But honestly, though, the flow that this track gets into is pretty hypnotic. Like the back half has just such a strong sense of melody, and I also appreciate the way that the motif of the song is passed through like different instruments. Like I thought that was a nice like little handoff, and might like call back to like what you talked about earlier in the album with like the instruments and the vocals like trading off, like rhythm, counter rhythm, going willy nilly, being like that steady rock foundation. So yeah, I very much enjoy that. So yeah, with moving in stereo, I think I'm gonna. It's a bit of a mixed bag for me because we get some misfires with the Saint Anger snare sound and that horn effect that was in the third verse, which was pretty rough. But we also get a lot of good stuff. So I think I'm putting Moving in Stereo in like the mid song bucket because we got some stuff that makes me happy and some stuff that's just like making me question reality as I know it, man.
Oh, all right. First of all, I will address that snare. I have heard this song many times, and full disclosure, I work at a radio station that does play this song every once in a while, and I'll have to go back and listen to it because I don't think I've ever heard that snare sound like the Saint Anger snare. I will say it is slightly off-putting, and it's a lot more... In fact, I would say it's off-putting for the exact opposite reason Saint Anger was off-putting, which is that I think the snare on here is mixed so flat and so like meant to be almost like a synth that it sort of feels very synthetic and out of place. But it doesn't sound to me like it's like tinny or canned like Lars Ulrich had on Saint Anger. But that's again another discussion for another time. Aside from that, I pretty much agree with you wholeheartedly. This song is a bit of a slow burn, and it does have a very hypnotic effect. Like the keyboard riff that goes is just very, very hypnotic. And the vocals pretty much do their part from Benjamin Orr. Like, he's just basically there to reiterate the mood of the song, which is, Life's insane, you're moving in stereo, which means, you're busy, you're just going from place to place and things are crazy. The one part of the song I will point out was a very much a highlight for me is I think it's the last chorus or next to last chorus where the way they process Orr's vocals, he actually does move in stereo. It moves from like one side of the ear to the other. I thought that was a really neat trick. I mean, it's kind of cliche almost with how obvious it is, but I liked it. I appreciated it. And here I would say this is the one track on the album where their artsy tendencies that they showed on the back end of side A really do pay off. Like, these guys have a little bit of art rock in them, and this feels like the art rock track that works for them because it has a strong beat, it has a very simplistic approach, but it's not so typical that it sounds like the majority of the tracks on this album. So, yeah, this is very much an icy new wave type of pop song. It's a very consistent song, which I appreciate. It didn't really stand out to me for one reason or another, but at the same time, I do like it, so I'm putting it in the good song bucket.
And that's fair enough. I again, like, let me qualify my Saint Anger comparison because I don't want you to go back to it and be like, what's this butthole talking about? Like, do I need to get a new co-host? Does he not listen to this? But what I mean, like, that snare sound, it's off-putting to me, and it sticks out like a sore thumb. Where once I heard it, I'm like, that's the only thing I can focus on. Why is that the only thing I can focus on? What? Okay. Anyways, I digress. I'm gonna stop. Beating a dead horse with a dead horse there, man. So, but I do appreciate like the fact that you put Moving in Stereo as like a good song bucket thing, because like overall, like minus like those two things that I like critiqued about the song, honestly, this could have knocked out I'm in Touch with Your World out of my top three, and this could have been like a third favorite track. But like just because of those sounds and how like they took away from the enjoyment of the track as a whole, like it sunk it basically torpedoed the track's chances of like creeping up into my top three.
That's fair. That's fair. And again, I understand that, sometimes, especially when a band is attempting to be as streamlined and as polished as the cars are on this record, little moments like that, like the margins for error are very, very slim. So I understand where you're coming from with that.
So with that being said, I feel like I feel like we're ready. I feel like we are almost ready to finish off this review. But before we do that, we have to discuss the closing track off the record, with that being not everything is okay, but everything is all mixed up. And the closing track is all mixed up. I stuck the landing. Matthew, the floor is yours.
Yes. And there were no injuries reported. All Mixed Up, first of all, I will say, I'll start All Mixed Up by talking about the end of Moving in Stereo, because the transition from Moving in Stereo to All Mixed Up, especially if you have this on CD or vinyl, is seamless, and it just sounds so good. Like, it makes it feel like these last three tracks, particularly with Bye Bye Love, Moving in Stereo, and All Mixed Up, are almost like a little mini suite, because there's no break in action. It just goes right from one to another, and it all just flows very well. And then you get to the song itself, which starts a little slowly, just where it has a little bit of twinkling guitar, some vocals from Benjamin Orr, just sort of laying on the low side. Almost kind of reminds me of something like we talked about on Marquee Moon by Television, where it has sort of a very twinkling guitar and sort of very moody vocal performance. But then you get to the chorus, as it were, because the pre-chorus where they sing, it's all mixed up. I did like how on certain reiterations of that, you have the vocals sort of in themselves mixing up. Like you'll have the bass vocal go down while the other one stays up, and they did it on purpose. They knew what they were doing. I very much appreciated that. But then you get to the choruses themselves, where you get this final big blast of the vocals, singing "Leave It to Me," "It'll Be All Right," while Orr sings the main part of the chorus. And have I mentioned that these guys worked with Queen's producer yet? Because this track very much sounds like a lot of Queen influence on this track. But once again, those harmonies sound fantastic, especially towards the end, where you get the final parts where they say, "Leave it to me, be all right." And just get that repeating phrase of "be all right" with all the voices singing it towards the end. That's just a nice, pleasant way to finish off the record. Aside from the sax solo, which I'll admit is a little random and comes out of nowhere, but it is also very nice too. But yeah, this track once again displays how this band plays with dynamics very strongly, and they manage to make everything build up to those big moments. So I very much appreciate that. I would say All Mixed Up for me closes the Cars in the great song bucket. Catch Me on Another Day, it might go back down to good, but there's enough good in it, particularly that final refrain of just "be all right," having a very sort of plateauing sort of comfort to it that I like. So yeah, great song bucket for All Mixed Up to end out the Cars.
And for me, with All Mixed Up, I agree with you about the Queen influence. Like, it's very much there, like, throughout this track here. But yeah, with that Queen influence, I did enjoy that outro where you just get like that bridge section just riding the track out, and I do enjoy also the twinkling synth line. That was a nice way to end off the whole track. And I too enjoyed the. Well, I didn't find this sax solo to be kind of random. I just found it to be like just a solo. I thought it was a nice way to carry off the end of the track, but that bridge section that I'm talking about, you get it in a couple different spots, and you kind of were already talking about where like you get the back and forth vocals of like everything will be all right, leave it to me, like that kind of dynamic there. I very much enjoy it, and like it's probably the reason why I enjoy it is the foundation of like music listening and appreciation that I have through the Queen. So yeah, it's very much Queen inspired, and Queen is a notable band for a reason. They come up with good stuff, man. Who'd have thunk, man? But other things I do like about the track, though, that wall of sound that you get hit with after the first chorus is pretty nice, and I'm always a fan, specifically within like tracks in general of like albums that we talk about. That might have been the most generic statement that I ever said, but where like I always pick up on when like a band tries to hit you with a wall of sound, like a burly man picking a fish out of a barrel and just smacking you over the face with it. I thought, like, I'm always a fan of that, so you get that here. And the only other thing I want to mention about All Mixed Up is that menacing synth line that you find at the start of the second verse, accompanied by that drum tom, like that tom hit. That was a very good section. So yeah, I'm walking away all mixed up, feeling like with the Cars as a whole, like this group, yeah, they have just what I needed as like their big single. But when it goes into like when they go into like their nuts and bolts, and when they have fun with experimentation, they can come up with some good stuff. So yeah, I think I'm right there with you with All Mixed Up being in the great song bucket.
It's a great song. It feels like one of those tracks where it ends the album on a really, really nice note. And again, coming from the sort of consistent tones of Bye Bye Love and Moving in Stereo, for it to have this nice closing statement of, leave it to me, it'll be all right. Lyrically, it very much sort of parallels something you would hear from Brian Wilson from like a song like Don't Worry Baby, where the female is, or the significant other, not the judge, is saying, don't worry about feeling down, everything's gonna be all right. And it's a very nice message to close things out on. And because we have closed things out, everybody may look at their scorecards and realize that they are filled out, because we have had 9 tracks up, 9 tracks down, and one thing left to say.
We did it.
We did it, man. We did not offend any type of Disney or Pixar copyright law. We did not enter into the world of auto racing. We just listened to the Cars. So I am going to go ahead and go first with this. This album to me is, if there is one word to describe it for me with one glaring exception, it's consistency. Because this is a very consistent album with a very consistent sound, a consistent formula that pretty much works every single time. You get the sort of half acoustic, half synth drums. You get the bass lines that are always crisp, the guitar lines that are either keeping the rhythm or keeping the solo party going. Everything sounds like something you would expect from a new wave rock and roll band, and it's probably no coincidence that a lot of up-and-coming new wavers that would find themselves in the early 80s probably owe a bit of debt to this record for helping shape the sound of new wave, especially in a pop-friendly sense. Now, is this album perfect? Of course not, because I'm in Touch With Your World exists, and that song was just pushing the art meter way too deep into the red. But aside from that, you get classics like Good Times Roll, Just What I Needed, You're All I've Got Tonight, I'll throw All Mixed Up in there as well, that just show this band that is very good at harmonizing, they're very good at playing their instruments, and they sing good about solid lyrics that for the most part, don't stray into chaos. Are they super deep? No. But it's rock and roll, it's pop. Sometimes it doesn't have to be deep. It just has to be a good groove, and that's what these guys got. So I'm glad to own it on vinyl, and I'm glad that we talked about it here today. I'm going to give the Cars, by the Cars, an 8.5 out of 10.
All right, and for me, my opinion, my thoughts about the Cars, as somebody who started this review by thinking, what is a car? Like, I don't even know what a, like, well, I knew of the Cars, like, I know that they existed and they're a group, but I didn't know that they did the song Just What I Needed. So yeah, just so like everyone can understand my foundation for this review. But no, with this album here, I'm gonna have my critiques about tracks like Good Times Roll and also Don't Just Stop because of just weird lyrics and just stuff that didn't stick the landing there. And also like stuff within Moving in Stereo that maybe Catch Me on a Different Day could have been my third least favorite track. But outside of like those, like, you know, like bad moments on the record, like we also get like the utter perfection of the big song Just What I Needed. That chorus is just the boilerplate for whatever choruses need to aspire to be. And also you get like, you know, fun experimentation like with like All Mixed Up, and also with I'm in Touch with Your World. We're gonna disagree on that track forever until like it actually becomes romantic. But jokes aside, and even with the critiques I have about Moving in Stereo, like you do get like good experimentation, and you also get like other like traditional like big pop rock songs like Bye Bye Love, and also You're All I've Got Tonight. So you get a good mixture of everything. So yeah, I'm walking away with this review thinking that this album is a good album. If somebody's just like, hey, I need to like listen to an album by the Cars, I'm like, well, yeah, check out their debut album. It's a good recommendation. But for me, I'm going to give The Cars by the Cars a solid 7 out of 10.
Fair enough. So, your 7 and my 8.5 total to a 15.5. You divide that by 2. You get 7.75, which is our average rating for this album because...
Math
works, everybody. It does not discriminate. It does not hate. It's just numbers, and numbers be facts. So, my next album recommendation based off of the Cars self-titled debut, I thought about doing another Cars album, but as per my rule, I have to choose another album I've listened to, and I could recommend their greatest hits, but that's kind of cheating. So instead, I'm going to go with an album that, much like this one, has influences of Queen in both their vocal stylings, their harmonizing, and their overall feel, but also feels like the Cars as far as trying to make pop for the era that they are in, perhaps trying to upstart the era that they are in as well. And that is the album Some Nights by Fun, released in 2012. A lot of harmonies on that album, a lot of good bangers on that album, some that have, much like the Cars, lasted the test of time and have been played on radio ever since it came out. So, yes, Some Nights by Fun is my recommendation based off of the Cars' self-titled debut.
That is a fun album, and pun slightly intended. And for me, my next album recommendation, it was kind of hard for me because I like you, haven't listened to like another Cars album, obviously, because of how I started this review here. But there were maybe a kind of fun different rabbit holes that I could have went down. But what I'm like, because I was honestly thinking about doing recommending the debut album by the Stooges, because like that was still like very much in the same spirit. However, I'm going to pivot to a few decades ahead of the time that we're talking about, and I'm going to recommend an album by the band Fountains of Wayne, and that album is Welcome Interstate Managers. for those of you who are not aware of that album, that is the album that has Stacy's mom on it. And I was thinking, like, well, yeah, we have a big single, and also, like, in retrospect, Stacy's mom, like those instrumental like pops that you get at the beginning, very much reminiscent of Just What I Needed. So like pretty much probably could be very much inspired. And then you also get like, fun, different kind of like, experimental tracks within Welcome's Interstate Managers with alongside like, straight up like pop rock tracks. So yeah, it was an easy comparison for me, and it was a healthy reminder for me to revisit that album again. So yeah, easy recommendation for me.
You know what? I am very glad you brought that up because I had forgotten about how much Stacy's mom sounds exactly, well, maybe not exactly, obviously, for obvious reasons, much like Just What I Needed, but the two songs are very similar in tone. But yes, if you, the listener, have not checked out either Welcome Interstate Managers by Fountains of Wayne or Some Nights by the band Fun, check those albums out if you like this one, because me and Ryan both like this one as well, that being the Cars debut album, which, just to recap, we gave an average score of 7.75 out of 10. And yeah, we have reached the conclusion of discussion about the Cars, and I think you might be a bit more familiar with them now that we've done this.
Yeah. And I'm actually, more inclined to check out some of their back catalog. Well, the rest of their catalog. Because I don't want to say back catalog because this was the first album, so you can't go further than that. But yeah, I'm more interested by what the band has to offer.
Fair enough. And I'm glad you were appreciative of it. And I may check out some more of their stuff too, because again, I have their greatest hit CD that I listened to for the first time in a while, but some of their other albums probably are in that same category of, they got the toughness to them that might be appreciated. But we have one more thing to take care of before we officially kick this review into bed with a dead horse. Ryan, what are we going to be doing next week for discussion?
All right, so for next week's episode of Hey, Listen to This, we're going to be going into more of my camp, but it's going to be a camp that, I feel like you would enjoy. I don't know. We'll find out either way. It's not going to be like anything crazy or anything like that. But the way I'm going to have you pick between these two albums, because the one album was released in 2024, so fairly recently, and the other album was released just, last year. So we're going towards a more modern day. But in the album that was released last year was released during the time that we were doing the Ryan Kearns mini series, where I was just reviewing picking older albums for us to review. So that wasn't it came and went in terms of just like release and everything like that. But I do want to be able to bring that up. That being said, the way I'm going to have you pick between these two albums is, all this hockey talk, man, has me thinking that it would be fun to have you pick between two modern day hockey players. And these hockey players do represent the overall style and the sonic palette that we're going to be experiencing between these two albums. So, with all that being said, Matthew, are you ready?
I am ready.
All right, so the first option is Moritz Cider, and the other option is Cole Caulfield.
Oh, I like that. You get 50 goal scorer versus potential Norris winner. Offense versus defense. I like that. That's tough. But you know what? One team made the playoffs and the other did it, so I'm going to go with the team that made the playoffs. I'll go with Cole Caulfield.
All right, man. All right. So with that, you have chosen the album that was released in 2024, and that album is by a band called Los Campesinos, and that specific album is called All Hell.
Okay. So All Hell by Los Campesinos. I'm pretty sure half of this dissection of this album is going to be me wondering what the hell this has to do with Cole Caulfield. So I very much thank you for putting that angle on it. But yeah, I'm curious as to see what rabbit hole this is going to be. So I'm ready.
Oh man, I'm very much excited. Los Campesinos is a band that I'm kind of familiar with, but when this album was released, it was an album that was within my rotation. I feel like you would enjoy it. But yeah, dear listener out there, if you've never listened to All Hell by Los Campesinos, you know what to do. Yeah, make sure that you check it out before next week's review. That way you can have opinions about the album, and then you can have opinions about the opinions that me and Matt are going to be bringing to the table. So, yeah, I know that you're chomping at the bit to find out what the comparison between Cole Caulfield and Los Campesinos is, and you might not be familiar with Los Campesinos, but Matthew, I attest to you, everything will be all right.